Hi everyone, this tutorial is going to show you how to join large sunbursts together while with the tight continuous join as you go method. If you're familiar with my channel and or you've tried out my Hue burst blanket pattern, then this is going to be very similar. The only difference being that the sunbursts from the Hue blanket were already squares before joining them up, whereas these ones aren't, so we have to turn them into a square while joining them at the same time. The general idea is the same, but I thought I would be worthwhile to show you just in case we have any newcomers who may not completely know what's going on. So I'm here to clarify and make sure everyone can make this blanket. So these motifs are the ones from the Island Time blanket pattern, which is free on my blog, and I'll have the details down below. But we have large sunbursts here, so they just consist of an extra round on the traditional sunburst, and we're going to turn them into squares while attaching them continuously. So I'm going to be using the same yarn from the pattern with a few extra scrap colors, like this one here that I had lying around, but all of these yarns are DK weight from Ravenswood Fiber Co. And I'll be using my 4.5 millimeter rather hook. I'm going to assume that you know all of your basic stitches, so we can just jump right in. Okay, so I'm going to be joining with the color Never Plain, also from Ravenswood Fiber Co., and it's just an undyed yarn. And I'm going to line them up the way I want them. So when you have all of your motifs for the blanket done, you're going to lay them all out, and then from the top right hand corner of your blanket across each row, you're going to stack them up. Okay, so stack them up so that the motif from on the right hand side always remains on top. That way when you're joining from right to left, every time you grab the motif off the top of the pile, it's the next one that needs to be joined to your blanket. Okay, so I'm going to line mine up, get them ready to go. I'm going to grab mine from my pile here. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert our hook into any of these chain 3 spaces. I kind of like to start where we tied off and finished our yarn, just because then it kind of secures it and you don't have to worry about it and you can snip it off. So I'm going to drape my yarn over the hook and pull through. And I'm going to yarn over both of those tails and pull through. Drop one of the tails, and you're just going to hold it flat against your motif here and work over that tail. And we're going to chain 1 and 2, and this counts, this chain 3 here, the 1 2 3, this counts as your first treble. Now I'm going to work 3 more trebles into this space, so I'm going to yarn over twice, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, again, yarn over twice, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and one more time. So yarn over twice, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so now you'll have noticed that I did 4. So traditionally speaking, we do 3 stitches when we're doing a normal granny square, but for this one in particular, I wanted to make it a little more solid looking, so I just added a fourth stitch to every shell. So that is something that is a little bit different. So we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to put 4 more trebles in here to complete our first corner. Okay. So I had it originally planned out with, you know, the traditional 3 double crochet, 3 treble granny shells, but then it was really open, and I don't know, I just decided to do the 4, and it made it look a little more solid, and I quite liked it. So here we are. So in the next chain 3 space, we're going to put 4 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then in the next space, we're going to put 4 half double crochets. in the next chain 3 space 4 double crochets. And when we get to our next corner here, I'm going to step back and kind of talk more about what we're doing. So now in this next chain 3 space, we're going to create our second corner. So we're going to do 4 trebles, chain 2, 4 trebles. Okay, chain 2 and then 4 more trebles. And I'm just whizzing through them here. So if you need to pause the video to get caught up, please do so. Okay, so I said I'd put it down and kind of talk about what we're doing. So if you'll notice, I started in the one corner and I worked across the top of my square. So for this blanket, to join all of your motifs, all you're doing is you're snaking around, okay? So you're gonna go across the top, down the side, attach your next motif and work back up. So then you go up, over, down, up, over, down, up, over, down. And you keep doing that all along your row. So all I'm going to do here is continue working down this side of the square, and I'm going to join my next motif. Okay? So I'm going to put 4 double crochets. And then 4 half double crochets. And then 4 double crochets. And when we get to the next corner here, that's when the magic happens. So I'm in my third corner. I'm going to do half of that corner, so I'm going to complete 4 trebles. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now what I want to do is chain 2 and turn it around so that we're looking at the top of our blanket. This is the way it is. And now we're going to join a motif over here. So I'm going to grab my next one off the pile, and I'm going to do what's called a standing stitch. So I'm going to yarn over twice, and we are going to do a standing treble into one of the chain 3 spaces over here. Okay, so ensure our working yarn is behind our motif. Insert your hook. Okay, we're going to yarn over and we're going to complete that treble. Okay, so now they're joined. Okay, and now I'm just going to work my way up here. So as I'm turning this into a square, I'm just going to be slip stitching it to this one here. So we've got our little chain 2 here that we started with, and I'm just going to pinch that because I'm going to now slip stitch into each one of the top of these stitches along this square, and then I'm going to do my stitch over here. So slip stitch, stitch into my working square, slip stitch, stitch into my working square. Okay, so this first one, I'll grab my, I'm going to slip stitch into this one right here, okay? And then I'll complete my treble on this side. So I'm going to pinch that little chain 2, insert my hook from front to back, yarn over, and just slip stitch and pull that tight, okay? Then we're going to yarn over twice and complete our treble over here. And I'm going to do the same thing into the next stitch. Insert from front to back, pull through, and then complete my treble. Okay, slip stitch, treble. Now, for this you have an option. I like to, instead of working into this stitch right here, I like to just work into the space between our clusters or our shells. So I'm going to do that, okay? I'm going to work right into the space rather than into the top of that stitch. I just like how it separates it a little bit and allows it to still look like separate shells. So I've done half my corner over here, so I know that I'm now onto my next set of shells, which are my double crochets. So I'm going to do 1 double crochet. I'm going to slip stitch into this first stitch here, 2 double crochet, slip stitch, 3 double crochet, slip stitch, 4 double crochet. Okay, now I'm going to work into my space, slip stitch, and now we do our half double crochets. Okay, that was 1, slip stitch, that's 2, slip stitch, that's 3, slip stitch, and that's 4. Okay, I'm going to work into my space, slip stitch, and now I'm onto my double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Work into my space. Okay, and now I'm going to do my trebles. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 'oops. And it is a little fiddly with the first couple squares, but once you get a few more of them joined up in your row, then the weight of it will hold them down and it becomes a lot easier. Okay, so I've done my 4 here. Now I'm going to slip stitch into this corner. Okay, pull up and then just chain 1. I'm going to pull back and show us here what we've done. So we've just slip stitched into every stitch along here and completed the one side of our square over here. All right, it's super straightforward. Now we're just going to work across the top, turning it into a square, and down the side, just like we did with the first one, and then you would chain 2 and add your next motif and keep working across the row. All right, so we have half of a corner here. Well, we must have to put 4 more in to complete that corner, okay? So let's do that. Let's put in 4 more trebles to complete this corner. Oops, my yarn got caught on something there. Okay, so that's your first corner, or I guess my second corner. Okay, now we're going to do our double crochet, half double crochet, and double crochets along the top. So I do 4 double crochets, 4 half double crochets, 4 double crochets, oh my goodness. Okay, and now I'm going to do my third corner here. So 4 trebles, chain 2, and then 4 more trebles, you know, I chose this yarn because it was caked up and it was a center pull, and I thought, oh, it'll pull so nicely for the tutorial. And here I am still fighting with it. Never fails. Okay, so now I'm just working down the side of my square here, doing my 4 double crochets, 4 half double crochets, 4 double crochets, till we get to that corner, this corner here, and then we're going to work half of the corner with 4 trebles. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now if you're going across your row, then you know you have, 7 or more motifs to join, so you would just chain 2, and you would do one of those standing stitches and join your next motif and continue working up, over, down, okay? But we're going to pretend that I just joined all 9 motifs. What a job it was. And now we are at the end of our very big long row, and we need to go across the bottom, because if you've noticed, now I've got, if you're working the island time blanket, then you've got 9 motifs that don't have any bottom sides. So we have to finish those off. So we just zip along the bottom all the way back to the beginning. So I'm going to complete this corner here. I'm chain 2, and then I'm going to do 4 trebles to complete the corner and come back along the bottom of our row. And no surprises here. We do our 4 double crochets, 4 half doubles, 4 double crochets, and then we just complete all those half corners that we have. So I've done my 4 double crochets, my 4 half double crochets, then I'll do 4 double crochets, and now you can see we've come to our first corner. So we've got half of a corner here. Well, that must mean that we have to do another half of a corner. Okay, so let's do that before we get ahead of ourselves. And let's just put in 4 trebles so that things are starting to look normal. This is what I get questions about the most. People will be working across the bottom. They'll be like, I don't think this is right. And I'm like, it is. Trust the process. You'll go along the bottom after. Okay, so we've put in our 4 trebles. Now we're going to chain 1. And remember the little chain 2 nub that we had to hold on to in order to get our slip stitch in here? Well, we are going to go into that chain 2 space. It's in there, see? So we're going to go in there, and we're going to slip stitch, and then we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to complete the corner on the other side with 4 half double crochets. Okay, so that's how that works out beautifully. And you just continue right along the rest of the blanket doing the exact same thing all across the row. Okay, so we're going to do our 4 double crochets in this next space. Four half double crochets in the next space. 4 double crochets over here. And then we've come all the way across our row, and now we need to finish up this very last corner on our first motif. So we're going to work half of a corner here, okay? Not the full thing, just half. So we're going to put in 4 trebles. Okay, I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to turn my blanket right side up so that I can have a look at it. So this was our very first top right hand square. Okay, and then we joined our whole row the exact same way, and we worked all the way back along the bottom. And now this side of your blanket will remain unfinished until the very, very end. Okay, now we're going to join row 2. So I'm going to join my motif down here the exact same way that I joined all the motifs along the row. So I'm going to grab our first motif from row 2 here. We're going to get all set up. I'm going to do one of those standing trebles. So I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook, and I'm going to insert from front to back. And complete that stitch. Okay, now I'm going to pinch my little chain 2 here and insert into the first stitch, the top of the first stitch, to slip stitch them together. And then I'm going to do my treble. And we're just going to slip stitch along the top and bottom of these squares. So you're completing the top of this square while slip stitching to the bottom of this square. Okay. Do our double crochets, slip stitch, double crochet, slip stitch, double crochet, and slip stitch. I'm going to work into the space, and then I'm going to do my half doubles. 1, 2, 3, 4, into my space. Now I'm going to do my double crochets. 1, see, make sure that you're getting into that first stitch. So I went into this one because sometimes when you work into this space, it kind of overlaps over here a little bit, so you might miss this one. So make sure you're pulling your stitches back and getting into this very first one here. You'll figure it out when you get to the end of your square because you'll have run out of stitches to slip stitch into, right? But it just sucks having to pull it out and go back and redo it. Okay, so I'm on my trebles. I'm going to work 1 treble, 2 trebles, 3 trebles, and 4. So I've got half of my corner here, and now I'm going to slip stitch into this adjacent corner right beside me, and then I'm just going to hop right over into that diagonal corner. Okay, and then I'm going to chain 1. And now I'm going to, if we turn our blanket the way it should be, right side up here. Okay, so now you see I've joined this motif while finishing the top of it and attaching it to the bottom of your first row. Now I'm going to work down the side and start joining them across the row. So I'm going to finish this corner off here with 4 trebles. Four double crochets in the next space. Okay, so nothing different than what we've been doing, just working down the side of this square here, setting it up to join the next one. Okay, and now I'm going to work half of a corner. So I'm going to put 4 trebles. And then I'm going to chain 2. Okay, let's turn it right side up so we can have a look at what we've done. Okay, so we've done 2 sides, and now we're going to join our next motif. So we're going to do a standing stitch into any chain 2 or chain 3, I should say, chain 3 space here, like so. Pinch your chain 2, slip stitch, and finish off the half of this corner. So we're just slip stitching and crocheting. Okay, so all we're doing is going back up the side that we just completed. And you just keep doing this forever and ever. And you kind of get into a little rhythm. You can see now that I've got the 3 squares joined that it holds itself down nicely, and you can really get a rhythm going with your slip stitches. You don't have to fight it as much. It doesn't start, you know, twisting and getting away on you. So if you did the Sunburst blanket, then the only difference is that the motifs were already squares, so you were just doing straight double crochets all along. You didn't have to worry about the trebles and the doubles and half doubles. So it was just all double crochets. So this one, there's a little bit of a mix-up because I just like to do that, I guess. Make my life harder so that I have to film a continuous join as you go tutorial for absolutely every pattern. They're all just a teeny bit different than the other one. That's okay. We're getting lots of practice, right? So I've completed the first half of this corner. And now I'm just going to pull that out so you can kind of see a little bit better. So now we have to slip stitch it to our corner over here so it's nice and tight. And then we have to go into our diagonal before we can continue working across the top, okay? So I'm going to slip stitch into my square right beside it so that it's nice and tight. And of course I'm tangled. There we go. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the diagonal square. Okay, and then I'm just going to chain 1 to secure it. And then I can finish off this corner while slip stitching it to this square. So we're going to go this way. So I'm going to put my first treble in, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the first treble over here. Treble, slip stitch, treble, slip stitch, treble, into my space, and then we have a completed beautiful nice tight corner. Okay, you can see that. And now we're just going to work across the top with our doubles and half doubles. I'm going to do 1 double crochet, slip stitch, 2, slip stitch, 3, slip stitch, 4. Go into my space here, and then do my half doubles. And then my double crochets. Okay, into my space. And now we're at the end of our blanket here. Obviously, you won't be. You still have 7 or so motifs to go in row 2. But I'm going to join this and pretend like I did all of mine. And then show you how to come back across the bottom. So I've got my first half of that corner, and I slip stitch over here and chain 1. And now I'm going to finish this corner and work down the bottom. And you do this exactly the same way that you finished off row 1. Okay, so you work down the side of this last motif of your row, and then you join them all up, completing all those corners along the bottom. So do my double crochets, my half double crochets, double crochets, and then we're going to complete this corner. So we're going to do 4 trebles, chain 2, 4 trebles. Turn your blanket upside down, and then you got to work across the bottom. Okay. So I'm going to finish this corner off with my 4 trebles. Oops. Then I'm going to work my double crochets. My half double crochets, double crochets, okay, we've come to our first join here, so we're going to work the other half of this corner, slip stitch it to our little chain 2 nubby. So I'm going to put in my 4 trebles, chain 1, slip stitch into this chain 2 space here, okay, chain 1, and then complete the other half of this corner on this side. Okay, finish the bottom of this one here with your double crochets, half double crochets, and double crochets. Okay, we're going to work the first half of this corner, okay, with our 4 trebles. Then we're going to pause and take a step back and look at all we've done. Okay, so this is upside down, right? So this was the very top of your blanket, the top right-hand corner, and you worked across from right to left. Okay, and then you joined up row 2, right to left, and then you came back along the bottom. Well, we're going to pretend that this was a huge long blanket and you've done all 11 rows, and this is the very bottom right-hand corner of your blanket, okay? Now what? Well, we have this whole unfinished side that we have to go back up. And we do that exactly the same way that we finished off the bottom of every single one of our rows, okay? So we're going to turn it, and we're just going to finish off this corner, and we're going to work all the way back up to the very beginning. Probably the most satisfying part of the blanket. After you've joined so many motifs, you get to whiz back up the side of that blanket and join it all up and sew in those ends. Finish it off. So I did 4 trebles to finish my corner. Now I'm going to do 4 double crochets. Then I'm going to do 4 half double crochets. 4 double crochets. Okay, we're gonna finish the first half or the second half of this corner here with 4 trebles. Chain 1, slip stitch to your little chain 2 nubby thing. Chain 1. Finish the other side of this corner with 4 trebles. Okay, almost at the very end, we're going to do our 4 double crochets, 4 half double crochets, and 4 double crochets. Oops. Okay, we've made it all the way up the last side of our blanket here. Now to join our round, we are going to slip stitch into this first treble, okay, not into your chain 3. So you have 1, 2, 3, but we're going to go into the top of this stitch right here. Like so. Okay, you would cut your yarn, okay, you would fasten off, and then I take my yarn. I'm not fastening off because I'm going to save it and turn them into something else. Maybe a pillow cushion for myself. So you would fasten off, and then I take my end, weave it through my needle, and I go back down this hole here, and I weave it down this stitch, okay? And then I take it down the back of these, and then I pick up this and thread it through the needle as well. And then I sew both of those tails in at the same time, back and forth, 3 or 4 times in the back of these stitches. Okay, making sure that you split the ply so that you're not, pulling it out on yourself. And then that should be really nice and secure for you guys. So there you have it. I hope this was helpful. Enjoy.